Hello again. Okay, so we're going to continue with our blood vessel labs. So again, a combination of these videos and the videos with Miss Graham and the actual models, and you should be fine. So what we want to do is we covered the basics of the anatomy of the blood vessels, and we've done the vessels around the heart, and we've done, I've got to scroll forward. I stopped my PowerPoint, sorry. So what we want to do now is we've done the vessels around the heart, and we've done the vessels in the thoracic cavity. We've done the vessels going up to the head, out the arms, and then the vessels that are going to the legs, arteries and veins. So now what we want to do is we want to focus on the vessels inside the abdominal cavity. And so these are going to be the vessels, the arteries and veins that go out to the stomach and the liver and the spleen, the kidneys, the gonads, the small and large intestine. We want to talk about how that blood gets out to those organs and how it's returned back to the heart. So I know this picture is sideways, but remember, so when the heart, when it pumps blood to the body, that blood is going to exit the left side of the heart through the aorta. You have an ascending aorta. It's going to descend through the thoracic cavity, and then it's going to show up in the abdominal cavity. It's going to pass through the diaphragm and become the abdominal aorta. All right, this abdominal aorta, as we've talked about before, branches off to go to the legs. But you also have branches off of the abdominal aorta that go to the various organs, like the stomach and the liver and the spleen. The blood is going to return to the heart through the vena cava. Okay, so this is the inferior vena cava because the superior vena cava drains the arms and the head. The inferior vena cava drains the legs and the viscera, the kidneys, the spleen, liver, stomach, intestines, things like that. So we're going to focus on the blood vessels that go to your visceral organs. So let me kind of go through real quick. Do I get to that picture? All right. So again, on this exam, you'll have a mixture of images and diagrams and also the model pictures, okay, because I know some of these models are hard to see when you're trying to take this course online. So let's talk about the aorta first. So this is the abdominal aorta. So this large red vessel is taking blood to the abdomen and for all your viscera. And remember, things are going to branch off of it. So the first branch we're going to talk about is called the celiac trunk. And that's this large vessel right here. That's the celiac trunk. And we call it a trunk because then 3 additional vessels come off of it. Okay, so the first branch off the aorta is called the celiac trunk, and then you have vessels that come off of that. And those 3 vessels are the hepatic artery, and so hepatic refers to liver, so like hepatitis is inflammation of the liver. Then you have the splenic artery. It goes off to the spleen, so the liver's on this side, the spleen's on this side, so that makes sense. So one's going off toward the liver, one's going off toward the spleen. And then the stomach's kind of is right here. So this is going to be the gastric artery. So gastro means like gastrointestinal, so stomach. So you have your hepatic artery, your splenic artery, and then your gastric artery coming off of the celiac trunk. All right? Then you also are going to have vessels that go to the intestines. And so in this one, if you were to peel away the stomach, there's a vessel coming off the aorta called the superior mesenteric, and that's right here. And that's going to go to your the mesentery. And I'll show you a picture of the mesentery in just a second. Let me go forward. So here we've taken away the stomach, and you can see that superior mesenteric artery right there. So if there's a superior, there's usually an inferior, and there is, so just come straight down, and here is your inferior mesenteric artery. Okay, so here's that celiac trunk. You have your gastric artery, your splenic artery, and your hepatic artery coming off. You don't have to know these, but these are the adrenal arteries. We don't have that listed in your list of structures, but that's what those are. And then you have your renal arteries. You do need to know these. These are your kidneys. So you have a renal artery. This is the right side. This is the left side, and a renal artery. Okay, so we've covered your celiac trunk, your splenic artery, your hepatic artery, your gastric artery, your superior mesenteric, your inferior mesenteric, your 2 renal arteries, and you also have to know your gonadal arteries. And so these are the ones that go to the testes in the male and the ovaries in the female. So the gonadal arteries, they come off right below the superior mesenteric. So here's a gonadal, and it's going to continue down to the gonad. Here's one continuing down to the gonad. All right, so those gets your... So now we're moving through our chart. So we've gotten down to all of our arteries inside of the abdominal cavity. All right. Obviously, blood's got to return, so let's talk about the return vessels. So again, blood's going to return from the legs through those iliac veins and join the inferior vena cava, right? The other things that join the inferior vena cava, you have your... Let me change colors. Got blue. So here's a renal vein. Okay, so right, left. Here's a left renal vein. All right, you have your gonadal veins. Now this is something a little different. Remember how we had something different between the right and the left arteries that go out to the arms? You had a brachiocephalic artery on the right side but not on the left side. The gonadal veins are also different. Your right gonadal vein goes right back into the inferior vena cava, so it goes directly back to the inferior vena cava. The left gonadal vein, it enters into the left renal vein first. So here's your left gonadal vein, and it actually empties in to the left renal vein, and then the blood goes to the inferior vena cava. So there is a difference between your right and left gonadal veins, and that becomes important when we trace a drop of blood. So you'll have to pay attention if you're taking blood to the right ovary versus the left ovary, because the blood's going to come back a different way. Again, we've got our iliac veins that are coming up from the legs. And now we have our hepatic veins. And so these are going to be your hepatic veins. And I've got a little better diagram to show you the hepatic veins if you'll hang on just a minute. So let me move forward. All right. So when we're talking about, and notice I didn't talk about the splenic veins, gastric veins, and splenic veins and gastric veins. I'm going to. Just hang on just a minute. So I said earlier something about a mesentery. When you think of what the mesentery is, so here's your large intestine. Okay, so this is this large intestine, and it has to have a blood supply. And so you have almost like a mesh-like webbing membrane that kind of holds it all together, and that's where the blood supply is. So this thin membrane that's full of blood vessels, that's the actual mesentery. Okay, so you have an inferior mesentery and a superior mesentery. So the superior mesenteric artery is going to come off, again, just below the celiac trunk. And then here's your inferior mesenteric artery. And that's going out and supplying the blood supply to the intestines. Okay, so if you were to do a dissection in lab, you could take out the intestines, and when you kind of pull them apart, there's this kind of this plasticky clear membrane with vessels in it. And that's the mesentery. So you also have the veins in the mesentery as well. So here's your superior mesenteric vein. All right, so it's going to come in right here. This is your superior mesenteric vein. This is here's your inferior mesenteric vein coming in right here. All right, and so one of the things you have to do is when blood is returning from the stomach, so the gastric vein, from the spleen, so your splenic vein, and from the intestines, that needs to be processed first before it goes back to the heart. So I usually do, I just always kind of say, think about where it's been. So it's been with all the food and things like that around your stomach. Think all the icky food stuff. And so we want to filter that blood before we send it back to our heart and send that out to the rest of the brain. So your liver is one of your filters in your body. Your liver filters your blood. We've talked about how the spleen filters out red blood cells, part of your immune system. And we're going to talk about how the kidney filters blood to form urine. Well, the liver filters all the blood that's returning from the stomach and the spleen and the large and small intestine. So you want to filter that first through the liver before you send it to the inferior vena cava and to the heart. And so we have something called the hepatic portal system. So all the blood returning from the superior mesenteric vein, the inferior mesenteric vein, the splenic vein, and the gastric vein, they're all going to empty into hepatic portal vein. So here, let me see if I can change my pen again and get a little better color. So here is my superior mesenteric vein. Here is my inferior mesenteric vein. So the inferior mesenteric vein joins the splenic vein. You hear the spleen. So you can see the spleen coming, splenic vein coming here. They're going to join together here, and these two will join the superior mesenteric right here. Here are your gastric veins. They're going to come in and join at this same point. So where all of these kind of come together and all that blood's emptying in from the spleen and the stomach and the intestines, we call that the hepatic portal vein. That blood will then enter into the liver. Okay, so that blood's going to be filtered through the liver. Then that blood is going to go into the inferior vena cava. So here's the hepatic veins. So the hepatic veins are taking that blood from the liver back in, after it's been filtered, back into the inferior vena cava. So the hepatic portal is not the same thing as the hepatic vein. So your stomach, your spleen, your intestines, all that blood returns via the hepatic portal to the liver. The liver does its thing, and then that blood is carried to the inferior vena cava. Okay? So this is a picture kind of showing you on a model what this looks like. So let's see how much we can see. Here's the celiac trunk. Let me get a different color again. It's hard to find a color that is going to show up every time. Here's your celiac trunk here. Okay, well, you've got your gastric and your splenic's kind of hiding out back there, and your hepatic arteries. So remember, celiac trunk is an artery. It's got 3 arteries coming off of it. Here's going to be your superior mesenteric and your inferior mesenteric arteries, because they're going out to the small intestine. You've got your inferior mesenteric veins and your superior mesenteric veins here. Here we have the inferior point right here. Can you see that? Can you, this is not a good. Can you see that yellow? There's your inferior vena cava. So this is a picture of a model that you might use to have you identify these vessels. Here's a close-up of these vessels again. So we're in the abdomen. So this is the aorta, right? I need like a white color. Black will work. Okay, black will work. So this is the abdominal aorta. Here's your inferior vena cava, right? The blood's returning to the heart. You have your celiac trunk again with your gastric, splenic, and hepatic arteries coming off. Your superior mesenteric artery. Your inferior mesenteric artery. Then you have your right and left gonadal veins. Here you have your inferior vena cava. Here comes your right gonadal vein. Here comes your left gonadal vein, and it's emptying into the left renal vein. So here's your right renal artery, your left renal artery and your left renal vein. Here's your right renal artery and your right renal vein. So there's a lot of things you can see on this particular slide, and hopefully identify these vessels. So so what you'll see on the exam is I'll have a picture, probably these same ones. I only have so many pictures. And it'll say, name this vessel. So if it was this blue one, that would be the left gonadal vein. If it was a red one, it would be the left gonadal artery. And so you should be able to figure that out either from a picture or diagram. A couple more. Let me do this one over here first. Another model that shows it a little bit better. Again, here's our celiac trunk. It does not show the artery, the gastric, splenic, and hepatic. It just shows the celiac trunk. Here's your superior mesenteric, inferior mesenteric, right and left gonadal arteries, right and left renal arteries. Coming back to the vein side, you have your inferior vena cava, your right renal vein, your left renal vein. Here's your right gonadal vein, your left gonadal vein. All right, so that's a nice picture that you can see pretty well because it's blown up. So make sure you're paying attention as you're learning these, because I'm going to have to take some of these pictures and kind of blow them up big so you can see them on your exam. So make sure you're looking for structures like kidneys and adrenal glands and stomachs and spleens to help you know where you are. All right, so this model, I want to talk to you quickly about this one. Again, here's your celiac trunk with your gastric. And this one you can even see it goes out to the spleen, your splenic, and this one goes to your liver, hepatic arteries. All right. You can see your renal arteries and your renal veins. You can see your gonadals, your superior mesenteric, and your inferior mesenteric arteries. So I like this slide because it puts all the stuff that's got to be filtered by the liver purple. So you know this is all going to be filtering into that hepatic portal before it goes to the inferior vena cava. So this is going to be your superior mesenteric vein. This is going to be your inferior mesenteric vein. This is your splenic vein. This is going to be your gastric vein. And all of these empty into this purple, this large vessel called the hepatic portal vein. That's going to carry the blood to the liver. So you can see this purple goes into the liver and then it kind of disappears and it shows back up as this blue thing. And that's the hepatic vein. So all that blood filtered into the liver where it was cleaned, detoxified, whatever you want to say. We haven't really got to digestion yet. And then it's going to return to the vena cava through the hepatic vein. You can also see the gonadal arteries and veins on this one too. So they're going to be kind of, here's your gonadal artery. I think I already showed you that, gonadal arteries here. Okay. Again, just another slide that kind of shows you, taken out of the body with just those abdominal aorta and inferior vena cava kind of highlighted. Same vessels, but just another option that I may use to test you on. So you should be able to find those structures. And then the last thing I want to notice, again, because we're talking about gonadal arteries and veins, so we know the female gonad is the ovary and the male gonad is the testis. So this is going to be, your gonadal arteries, the red, and it's surrounded by this blue gonadal vein. And so you can see that over here as well. So if you're trying to find the gonadal vein, it looks kind of like a chain that wraps around the gonadal artery. So look for something that looks like a chain. And that gets us through all of our arteries and veins in the abdominal cavity. So again, between this video, take these, I would recommend taking these PowerPoints. They're not labeled and for a reason, so that you can then go back with your textbook, with the video, with the videos by Ms. Graham, and label these. If you will download the actual PowerPoint and not the PDF version, if you get the actual PowerPoint, you can actually cut and paste those pictures, and so you can take those pictures and blow them up if you want. So I'm going to let you have that ability to take those pictures and make your own PowerPoint. You can blow up sections and really see things large if you want to. So you have that option to help you with this portion of the lab exam. All right, I think I covered everything. I hope so, and I will see you again in another video. Thanks again.